Maybe or good afternoon.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear
Hi
you.
Seth, yes, can hear you well.
Awesome, great. Are we using the PICQS backgrounds or it's flexible?
I think it's up to us, but I think we could use for uniformity. I think we should use it all together. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay,
Let me switch mine as
all
well.
right.
And look that Eugene was going for the other day.
Yeah, yes, so that was funny. That was funny.
The um the orientation of the text and everything is right, yeah?
It's all good. Yeah, it's all
Okay,
good. Let me download my copy.
cool.
We have a lot of early bird participants today, so I am filtering the attending, the admittance.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Seth, I've been meaning to ask you,
Hmm.
are you okay from the earthquake? Were you safe? Everything okay?
Well, thanks for asking 2 weeks later, but yeah. Um, no, thankfully we're okay. We're okay. I was having lunch 30 local time, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa! I feel hungover or something. Something weird is going on." And then I saw all the lights kind of doing this, and it was very significant. Normally in Thailand you do have the odd rumbles like once a year or something like that, but nothing to that extent. So everyone started freaking out, and then obviously I ran back to the office and kicked everybody out, and yeah, no, it was okay. Thankfully, no, none of our staff were affected. Thankfully, our buildings and everything was all okay. Everyone kind of followed through the fire alarm procedure, right?
Mm.
But everyone was gathering at like the meeting point, which was like in the middle of all the tall buildings. So then people were going, maybe this is not the best place to wait. Then the Bangkok governor said, okay, everyone get out to Lumpini Park, which is about 5 minute walk away.
Yeah.
So, no one ever had a earthquake protocol. We all certainly do have one now, but it was just quite a surprise and shock. Thankfully, all our construction sites were all okay as well, even the ones in the midst of construction.
Mm.
Some impacts on temporary works and things like the slip form and stuff, but those were temporary works anyway. But thankfully, structure and stuff all okay. Just some architectural stuff, plasterboard and stuff,
Mm.
cracking more, interior decoration sort of things.
Mm.
But everyone in Thailand's really nervous because of that building that collapsed in Chatuchak, right? So that raised a lot of eyebrows with regards to the confidence in the construction specifications and quality of contractor, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
But Thailand generally capable contractors, you would not have a problem. So
Mm.
that's why a lot of eyebrows were raised with the collapsed building and a lot of dirty laundry coming out so far.
Oh dear.
Like appropriate testing and, was the right contractor selected and all this sort of stuff. So fairly nervous. And, that happened on the Friday. And then on the Monday, everyone was kind of like back at work, kind of like normal. And then at 11 a.m., I was having a management meeting with my team. And, my HR was like, hey, my friend's calling me in another building. They just evacuated again. And then, everyone started panicking. And then we heard the fire alarm go off again. So we all had to exit. It turned out that one of the government buildings in town, the staff, the tenants inside heard some noises. So they evacuated in the abundance of caution.
Mm.
But it was just basically from the Friday before, some of the structure and stuff had some movement, right?
Mm.
So it freaked out probably quite a number of buildings on
Yeah.
Monday. So there was a second scare, but government has confirmed there was no aftershocks or anything to such extent. So it was just an abundance of caution, as what they have said.
Mm.
But back to normal, pretty much. Thailand is a very quick rebound type culture. They get freaked out initially, and then there's a very quick knee-jerk reaction. And then after a couple of days, it kind of goes back to normal, right? So everyone's kind of, back to normality as such, thankfully.
Well, glad to hear. I just suddenly I've been thinking, who do I know in Thailand? Because when it happened, I was actually in Hong Kong on vacation. So I was like, oh, Seth is in Thailand. So good
So
to know, Seth.
no issues, yeah, thankfully, no issues. Mm. But yeah, it was scary. I mean, because where our office is, there's some high-rise condominium, so you could see this, the rooftop swimming pools, just like splashing like
There's
hell.
so
And when
many videos going around on social media on that.
and the buildings, because they're so tall and in line, you can see them kind of like doing that and stuff like
Ah,
that. It was really like whoa, quite. You didn't know whether you were in a dream or something. But yeah, I mean, the tower cranes were also kind of doing this, and I could see the crane operators opposite my office. Crane operators just basically jumping down as quickly as they can.
yeah.
So yeah, you know,
I think on social media there's this guy who's become famous now for jumping, right?
jumping across. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it was this. I think it was a Korean man with a Thai wife and kids or something like that.
right.
Yeah, it was two buildings with a bridge connection.
Yeah.
And he was in the gym on one of the towers, and the family was on the other tower. And we started doing this, and the bridge was like, like space and no space.
Yeah. Yeah.
He jumped over, so there's a little, you can see a little dot jumping over. When he made it to the other side, he realized his family had already,
Made
evacuated
it down, right? Yeah.
it down already. So you know, kudos to him. But you know, I guess in the grand scheme of things, retrospectively now, it was an unnecessary risk, right? But you know, in the midst of that moment, you can't blame him, right? You know, you just want to be with your family, even if something bad was happening, you're gonna still want to be with your family.
Your wife and children, everyone okay, yeah?
Yeah, okay. The schools evacuated all the kids, all the parents were super freaking out. You know, I'm on the parent chat group, all of them wanting to pick up their kids early. The headmaster was saying, do not come here. You're going to cause more mayhem. You know, they were all evacuated on the field.
Yeah.
All okay. Wife was working from home. We're expecting, so she's been working from home. But she was calling me saying, "Hey, did you feel anything?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know, well, I messaged her first saying, "Are you okay?" She was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I do feel something a bit weird." I'm like, "Yeah, this bloody earthquake. Get out of the building or whatever." But yeah, I mean, low rise was pretty much okay. So all pretty much okay. Just everyone got shaken up, literally
I,
shaken up.
my colleague who lives on the East Coast near the sea, apparently residents there could feel it as well in Singapore.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Yeah, it was they basically called it a shallow tremor, so it kind of spread a lot further and the impact was more significant. If it was like a deeper tremor from what
Yeah.
I'm no earthquake expert, right? But you know, it wouldn't be a vibrating kind of feeling. It was a lot more it was a lot more earth shifting, right? So yeah, don't want to go through that again.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Right.
I'm just gonna give Eugene a nudge to see if he's joining yet. I don't see him yet. I'll be back in a second, yeah?
All righty.
Good afternoon, Dr. Zohaili. How are you?
Right. Hello, hi. But I'll try my best.
You sound sexy, no worries.
That's good. All our videos are
I
very
mean,
good. All the
I've been
letters are.
consuming a lot of medication. I think none of those has helped for the past 3 days.
Yeah.
So I had another ginger and tea. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, all video looks good. Rhino, you look good.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my the letters like inverted a while ago, so I adjusted it.
Yeah.
Lynn, good to see you. Doc Saili, good afternoon.
Hi, afternoon.
Marisher, and of course Gerald, good afternoon.
Hi,
Uh,
Reno.
yeah, AJ will be in a few minutes. She just had a quick meeting with their room office.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Zuhaili, don't worry. You sound perfectly okay. Like when I hear you speak, you sound good. Don't worry.
But me myself, I'm struggling. Maybe just eating too much during the festival
Raya.
last week. Yeah, so this is the effect, Everyone went to the clinic, everyone get MC. So, I mean, very less people in the office. And we still have like 2.5 weeks to go to celebrate.
Yeah, Thailand now, everyone's gearing up for Songkran. That's this weekend.
Yeah.
Lots of splashing around.
Hey, Eugene, are you dialing in soon?
I got this right.
Eugene says he'll be about 5 minutes. He just got home.
Okay. Yeah, I can see your screen okay, Rhino. Perfect.
Okay. All right. Great.
Just for information, we are going to do away with the national anthem and the opening prayer, so that we could have more time with this webinar.
Okay. AJ's aware of that, right?
Yes, she is.
Okay, cool. Rhino, you and me need to get a doctorate to get a doctor in front of our name. I feel a little bit left out.
I know, man. I know.
I have one slight promotion. You can take a look and register.
Is it something I can just pay and then get it, or do I have to?
Oh, can be further negotiated.
Okay, cool.
Or we can just put SR and then MR, Set Leong, right?
Yeah.
So I think we can now admit participants.
Am
Okay.
I audible? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So when you admit them, they're gonna hear everything now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's all be proper now.
Okay.
Klappat hakten alla fest. Stort och stort, det har vi alltid gjort, så det är bullfest hela dagen. Vad takten alla Guldfest hela dagen. Stort, det har vi alltid gjort. Så det är guldfest hela dagen. Magra och tjocka, ska ha det bra, ja. Klappa takten alla Guldfest hela dagen. Mjöl från livets grottekvarn. Guldfest hela dagen. Stort, det har vi alltid gjort. Så det stort, det har vi alltid gjort. Så det är guldfest hela dagen.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this joint continuing professional development webinar brought to you by the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors and the Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors, particularly the PICQS Philippine chapter. My name is Engineer Geraldine A. Yek, and I will be your host for today's insightful session on risk management and cost control in construction projects. Before we begin, let's quickly run through some webinar etiquette to ensure a smooth and engaging experience for everyone. Please ensure to mute your mic and turn off your camera until invited to share. Check your chat box for announcements, as a link for the questions will be posted and will be read by the facilitator later on. Do not share screen. Participate on polls, if any. Do not interrupt the speaker. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the panel discussion. Do not type your name in the chat box. A separate link will be posted later for attendance and feedback. Okay, so now I am pleased to introduce our facilitator for today's panel discussion. Guiding our session is a highly accomplished professional in the construction sector. Engineer Arlene Joy Paredes possesses over 20 years of valuable experience across diverse projects in the construction industry, including significant work in Singapore and the wider Asia Pacific region. Her current role as a contracts manager in Auckland, coupled with her recent recognition as a finalist for both the RICQS New Zealand Awards 2024 and the Civil Contractors New Zealand Heinz Construction Awards 2024, underscore her Arlene.
Thank you very much, Jarrell. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone. And I hope and I trust that everybody's doing well. Okay, so good. Here it is 8 p.m. in Auckland, and we welcome you to PICQS Global CPD number 9, which is also brought to you in partnership with Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, or RICS. It is indeed a pleasure to be facilitating today's panel discussion. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists with the topic risk management and cost control in construction projects. Allow me to kick off the introduction of our well-rounded panelists who have a global experience in the construction industry. To begin with, let's have Mr. Engineer Rainer Jamandre. So he is a Chief Executive Officer of Quantity Solutions Incorporated, the highly commended quantity surveying team of the year by RICS Southeast Asia in 2024. So awarded as 2023 Honorary CEO of the Year by Nation Builders and Musliv. Awarded as Outstanding Professional for 2016 by Super Brands, he is a board top-notcher in civil engineering and a chartered quantity surveyor with 25 years of experience in construction, cost planning, and project management experience, and has completed 600 plus projects spanning 5 continents. In February 2020, he was awarded as the Distinguished Alumnus of Pi Don Bosco Technical Institute. These 10,000 jobs by 2030. Let us all welcome Engineer Rainer Jamandre. We will welcome him again later on as he gives us an overview about risk management and cost control. Now let me move to our next and introduce our next speaker, one of our panelists as well. Surveyor Dr. Zuhaili Muhammad Ramli, who is a senior lecturer in quantity surveying and construction and currently serves as the head of the Department of Quantity Surveying in University Technology Malaysia, or UTM. He has held several key academic leadership roles, including Assistant Dean for External and Global Engagement, Postgraduate Academic Manager, and Undergraduate Program Coordinator within the same faculty. So before he transitioned into the academe, he also gained industry experience as project executive at ARH Jurukur Bahad Sadan Bahada. In research and academia, Dr. Zuhaili has an extensive portfolio, having published over 60 papers in reputable journals and conferences. He has also contributed to more than 15 research projects, reflecting his active engagement in advancing knowledge within his field. Within the quantity surveying profession, Dr. Zuhaili serves as a member of the Assessment of Professional Competence, or APC, subcommittee under the Board of Quantity Surveyors Malaysia, or BQSM, Session 21st, 2023 to 2025, and is part of the accreditation panel for QS Accreditation Council, or QSAC. His contributions to the profession were further recognized when he and his team from UTM received the prestigious BQSM Innovation Okay. Now, our third panelist is coming all the way from Singapore and joining us tonight. He's none other than the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of DLS Consultancy Private Limited in Singapore. DLSC is a firm that provides project management, cost and contracts management, contracts and business advisory that touches on sustainability, resilience, digital, and technology. With more than 25 years of experience behind him and the vast experience on projects of various asset class and sectors, as well as business management under his belt, he is able to bring value to projects that is holistic in nature, taking into account contemporary issues in the industry. He also enjoys being in practice, education, and in research, grooming the younger generation in the industry of Singapore and Southeast Asia. He is an adjudicator, an adjunct associate professor at Taylor's, and the visiting fellow of the University of Reading, Malaysia. He currently holds the position of president of the Building Smart Singapore, the chairman of the RICS Southeast Asia Board and Singapore chapter, and chairman of the International Cost Engineering Council. He enjoys serving and giving back to the society and is a member of Compass in MOE and is the chair of the National Youth Achievement Award Council, as well as the committee members of several non-government organization committees. Let us all welcome Dr. Eugene Sea. Of course, last but not the least, to join our panelists Build Limited from Thailand. So Build is a leading construction consultancy firm based in Thailand and is founded in 1984. With over 130 staff and a portfolio of 1,100 plus projects across Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos, the firm specializes in quantity surveying, project and construction management, and environmental advisory services. With more than 23 years of experience, Seth has accomplished international track record, having worked on projects in Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, the Middle East, and the UK. He currently serves on the RICS Southeast Asia Regional Advisory Board and the Management Committee of the Association of Quantity Surveyors Thailand, or AQST. So previously, he chaired the RICS ASEAN QS and Construction Group Board and held board positions with the RICS Asia and QS and Construction Professional Group Board, RICS Thailand Board, and the British Chamber of Commerce Thailand Property and Infrastructure Group. Seth has attended and presented multiple papers at local and regional levels for various events and institutions, including RICS, AQSA, AIQS, SISB, PICQS, AQST, Assumption University Thailand, Chulalongkorn University Thailand, University of Malaya, and College Laila Taib Sarawak. Let us all give a warm welcome to Mr. Seth Yong. Okay, so there you have it, our panelists for this evening. And to give us an overview of risk management and cost control, I would like to pan the spotlight to Engineer Rainer Jamandre, who will give us a short pitch of what the topic.
AJ, good afternoon, everyone, and it's an honor to be here this afternoon with my co-panel speakers this afternoon. So we'll start off with talking about risk and cost management. I always preach this, that the key to successful construction is a good pre-construction planning. And I think everyone will agree with this. And we can probably talk about this whole afternoon in the next 2 hours about what's the impact of risk in their projects. So if you look at this project, it's in the middle of an ocean in the Pacific. What can possibly be the risk for a project like this? So identifying project risk is not limited by factors under our control. Most often, the biggest risks are those that are beyond our control. It was identified for this project that the number of skilled workers is limited, housing capacity is limited, there's a high incidence of shipping delays and high salt corrosion for metal components. So again, identifying this risk ahead of time will be able to help you plan the projects ahead. This is a project in the Philippines that we're currently doing. It's a factory and was identified to be within the extended danger zone next to an active volcano. And it is susceptible to downwind ashfall. And the designers, after we identified the risk, they increase the slope of the roof to mitigate the impact of such ashfall. So again, we're talking about risks that are significant for a project. The third one, so if you look at, you're probably doing this already in your projects, but what table? We've seen projects before where the adjoining building started to lean, and that caused so much damage and of course money. So identifying project risk is not limited by factors under our control. Again, it's always sometimes the biggest are those that are beyond our control, but those that are within our control should be identified ahead of time. Now, let me touch this. The construction risk identification and management. So all of us here, we're 169 in this event right now. And not all of us are just doing hotels or condos. A lot of us are doing so many things: railways, airports, infrastructure, energy, defense. So let's touch on the 4 pillars of construction, which is where the risks are. So cost, time, quality, and safety, all of this are all connected to each other. And in your project, which among the 4 pillars is the priority? So what I'm going to tell you this afternoon is this, that every industry has a different priority. For example, for commercial and real estate, because they're profit-driven, cost comes first, time second, quality and safety towards the end. But it's totally different for military, power generation, oil and gas, wherein safety becomes the #1 priority and cost actually comes at the end. So you'd see here, oh, I thought cost is always the #1. Apparently, not so. For manufacturing and infrastructure, quality becomes #1. So learning #1 for this afternoon, and we will trigger the discussion this afternoon with these learnings. #1, it's certain industries, cost is not always the priority. Okay? So sometimes it's safety, sometimes it's quality, and sometimes it's time. Learning #2, risk. So safety dominates high-risk sectors. So you're talking about military, oil, gas, and infrastructure and related projects. And cost and time is always the priority for profit-focused industries like real estate, retail, and some institutional projects. #3, quality is king, where longevity matters. So for example, you have manufacturing, heavy industries, usually quality becomes the first priority and cost is just secondary to these kinds of industries. So what I'm trying to tell you today, because I'm given 5 minutes to just drive up discussion on risk and contract and cost management, is that we have to learn how to use a risk register, because it is the backbone of a resilient construction project. It turns uncertainties into valuable managed variables, and without it, projects face reactive chaos, blown budgets, and safety failures. And by integrating it into your daily workflow, your team, your project team can build smarter, safer, and more successful projects down the road. So what does a risk register look like? This is just a sample of a risk register. So you identify first with a legal design. Is it a compliance issue or safety, security? So you have to identify those. Once you've identified those early, you also have to identify and classify them into likelihood, the impact, and the risk level, high, medium, and low. You have to arrange it so that you will know which risk will have to take priority in your project. And from there, you can create a mitigation strategy. And let me take on this next one. From the mitigation, you can create now a contingency plan so that you can lower the impact on cost, time, and quality. And then you assign a person who will actually be owning and managing that risk. Okay. Next one. Just a few more slides. So identify your risk early. Do your SWOT analysis, your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats as early as you can, and learn from past projects. The historical data of your previous projects will really help you anticipate the risk for your current project. Number two, always classify them. I showed you a while ago a table, and this one, once you identify the risks, you have to classify them. And there are so many available risks for your project that you can identify. And from here, you have to qualify and quantify. So once you've identified, you classify, and then you qualify and quantify. So risk management is a huge topic in our world, especially for quantity surveyors. And I wish I have more time to the discussion, but you always have to ask yourselves, how many times will it happen or recur? What's the financial impact? And what are the activities that are affected by such risk? Number four, plan for a proactive risk response. So in the mitigation plan, you can always include this: the avoidance, the mitigation, the transfer, and the acceptance of this mitigation plan. Don't worry, I think RICS and PICQS will be able to give you a copy of this presentation. I know I'm just browsing through it, but we'll be able to share this slides with you. Number five, risk allocation. Who will be in charge of that risk? Once you identify the risk, who will be responsible for that? And once you've identified that, cover that with clauses in your contract. And then you have to monitor and maintain time and cost buffers for all this risk. And lastly, this, monitor and control, right? So once you have that risk register with you, don't start pointing fingers because it will always be too late. Catch the fault before it happens. And share the risk register with everyone in your team, with the owner, the designer, the project manager, the QS, everyone in your team. They should be part of that. And that leads me to the last advice that I'll be telling you this afternoon. This. The takeaway for this in the last 5 minutes is this: that you have to develop the skills to prepare and manage a risk register. Once you know that, you'd say that you already have an advanced understanding of the QS profession. Number two, big sign in our office that when in doubt, ask. It's a very important mantra that every QS should have, that when you are in doubt or you have questions, always ask the right person for it. And likely, you'll get better answers, better opinions, and insights when you ask the right person. Number three, and last, discuss risk like you are affected by it. So sometimes the QS or the project manager will not be able to identify the risk because he's just he's not putting himself on the shoes of the project or the project owner or the stakeholder or the designer. You have to feel like you will be affected by that risk. So once you've identified that, put it in your risk register, and now we can now discuss all of this with our co-panelists this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reiner. And I would like to welcome the rest, our panelists, back on the stage, on our virtual stage. It's a very good 5-minute takeaway and an overview of what we're going to discuss this afternoon. And to start with, to kick off, I think, let me just double check whether our panelists are all in. Unmute and pin. And if everybody can see us. Okay, great. So the risk management, I echo what Reiner has just mentioned. Risk management and the risk are identifying them takes a lot of needs some more time, more than just 5 minutes to discuss everything. So we would like to invite at this point Engineer Reiner to expound on it in a separate CPD session. So watch out for that. We're going to be in touch with you. And we have Zuhaili, we have Seth. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence this evening or this afternoon on this topic discussion. Now to kick off, let me check. Let's start with Eugene here. Since coming from the consultancy field and you have been rendering feasibility studies, your company is versed on providing consultancy services and such. Now, let's look from the perspective of a pre-contract. So given that you're situated in Singapore, the practice in Singapore being a first world country, how do you identify and mitigate economic risks in construction projects during the pre-con stage?
Thank you very much for that question, AJ. So good afternoon, everybody. Well, as consultants for pre-contract stage, we do have our cost handbook and our rates that we can use. Of course, we can look at cost escalation, but those are to me very theoretical. What I've been always asking my quantity surveyors, although we are consultants, and by the way, I do work for contractors. But as consultant quantity surveyors, we must understand how we can, what is the construction methodology taken by the contractor, and what will be the risks taken by the contractor. This is because we can't just price the works based on something that it's just on paper, because we have to think through what is the construction methodology, what are temporary works, what are the what are the temporary struts and engineering works that is actually needed. All these will actually affect prices, and also dollar cost average. When will this work actually start? Let's say you have a very long project, say 5 years or 8 years or even 10 years. And if those works are going to start, like say on year 6 or year 7, if you take a straight line of 3% up, you're talking of a 20% difference of that particular work at that particular time, notwithstanding the fact that the contractor's cost will be locked in from day one. Yes. So I think there's a lot of there are multi things that even as a consultant quantity surveyor needs to look at. More things than the contractor quantity surveyor will have to look at on the economic values. And one of the tricks that I always use is PASTEL, where we look at things like political risk, environmental, economic risk, social risk, technology risks, legal risks as well, and also environment. And environment can be a lot of things. It can be what sustainability mark, green mark that you're actually using, for example, like LEED, or in Singapore it's green mark, and versus what the government is pushing, in terms of green and gracious builder, in terms of low carbon and so on and so forth. So it's I do not envy the job of some the estimator or the person that's coming up with the cost model. He is what engineer Rhino actually mentioned, that there's a lot of factors that has to go in. But I believe that if you have a proper framework, and with experienced person that has the construction methodology in his mind, and knows what's going to happen on site, that risks of will be greatly mitigated. But of course, if someone just takes it straight on face value from plans, then that's trouble actually will start from day one.
Yes, I
You-
definitely agree with you. Yes, thank you very much, Eugene, for that insight. Very valuable. And of course, given the economies of scale, like where we are now, you're currently in Singapore, multiple projects are lined up. So most importantly, providing an insight or an advice to your client. It is essential that you have, of course, the experience, the knowledge as to where the market is going. So depending on your location. Now, coming from the perspective of, let's say, a post-contract, let me try and then get it from Seth, given your location that you're currently practicing, the vast projects that MentaBuild has in Thailand. So can you share with us the experience of what do you find in terms of, or how do you control or provide the risk, or identify the economic risks when you do post-contract advice?
Sure, thank you. Firstly, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Really, really happy to be invited to speak here with all my esteemed panelists and moderator, etc. And I think Rainer and Eugene touched upon, quite a lot of important things. And risk, I think, right from the get-go is all established. I think right from the beginning, making sure that those factors, uncertainties and potential issues that may come about are kind of considered, documented, and factored into that construction stage contract, right? Because contract agreement has been established first and foremost, right? So, I think in terms of how we go forward, it all depends on the strength of those agreements. And of course, we have to operate and give advice within the confines of the construction documents that have been agreed. So, the second phase, which is you already got a contract agreement put in place, how do you kind of go ahead and manage that accordingly? I think the most important thing is keeping up to date, right, with the current news, political changes, and anything else legally as well that might come into play during the construction period. So monitoring things like construction rates of recent tenders in the market and inflationary challenges that you may face is really, really key, because these are the things that will help you better gauge as to what is a typical or expected trend versus what would be constituted as an abnormal trend. So then that way, at least you can kind of position any discussions on risk, etc., with a mindset of reasonable and considered approach. If things like inflationary issues that are expected to typically happen, and then those are catered for at the pre-contract, and the post-contract occurs, no surprise there, right? But if at the contract stage we kind of agree certain measures, and then during the construction stage all hell breaks loose, COVID, trade war, etc., that kind of opens up a slightly different can of worms and kind of grays the areas a little bit. So we have to approach such unconsidered factors in a reasonable, fair, justified way. As everyone can always appreciate, it's not about pointing fingers, as Rhino said as well. And it's also not about trying what is fair and reasonable and justifiable. So we have to make sure that we operate within such contractual confines, and that we, treat each matter in a fair and reasonable way as possible. I think one thing I just want to highlight, for example, in the construction stage, for example, if you have a client that has a diversified portfolio of various revenue streams. For example, you may have a client who is not specifically only a developer. They may be a manufacturer of a certain product. And also considering current economic issues, say their business line is manufacturing exports to the US, right? And they are doing a construction project in China or in Thailand, for example. And with the recent economic fund that's kind of happening in the world right now, that can actually cause such diversified clients to reconsider and pause construction contracts immediately, right? Because they need to focus on their main revenue stream, which could be the manufacturing side, right? So things like get out clauses, compensation mechanisms, all that sort of thing needs to be really, really carefully considered.
Yes, I agree with you 100%, Seth. And touching on the trade wars, we might move into an entire different topic, but trade wars is very, very something that we really need to look into. And in the post-contract, we know that how much this will affect us globally. And picking up from what you have mentioned, I would like to highlight the importance of monitoring. So it is good that we should be up to date, like during the post-contract, what are we on and what are we experiencing? What risks have occurred coming from or stemming from what we have planned during the pre-contract stage? And then one stays with the client, which one stays with the contractor and our subcontractors. Everything that is fair and reasonable, and we repeat, fair and reasonable. Okay, so coming from, let's hear it from Zuhaili and then Reiner also. From the academy, picking up from where we are at, the risks that we are exposed to, economic risks that we are tackling in this the question that we have at the moment. How do you think the academe would play the academe, of course, would play a vital role on this, but how would you approach it? And where are we now in terms of educating our future quantity surveyors or the future cost managers?
Right. Thank you, AJ, for the questions. Coming from the academic sector, I would say that the topic on risk and cost control has been part of the syllabus in any quantity surveying or construction economic related programs. And I think the emphasis is there. Coming from Malaysia, I think in our accreditation of the Board of Quantity Surveyors Malaysia, they have stated the body of knowledge that a quantity surveyor should acquire. So those are mainly our reference used in designing our program so that we can train our future quantity surveyors to be competent in the area of risk management and cost control. But having said that, learning in the university are not exactly something that they really experience in the industry. So what we provide is basically the foundation, the basic understanding on the risk and cost control in project. But when they join the industry, first and foremost, the feedback that we usually receive is that things are not as what they have learned in the university, right? For them during the short period of time is basically the basic. In terms of the application, it really depends on where are you practicing, right? What type of procurement that you are adopting, what kind of project that you are involved with. So they need to be able to understand the principle and then try to apply into relevant situation. And I believe that under PICQS accreditation also they have set up the body of knowledge that the program should offer and cover. So I think it should be the same in other practice as well, in other institutions as well. So we follow the guideline by the accreditation body together with, I mean, RSS also have their own body of knowledge that you need to follow in order for you to get the accreditation. Yeah, I think that's from my academic side of view.
Thank you, thank you. And now for on the worst cases of ongoing projects where, for example, this was not considered, how do organizations, let's say from QSI, or how would you advise your client and trying to cope, let's say, for example, let's be specific, in tackling or addressing inflation?
Thank you, AJ. Inflation is something that is beyond any party's control. Right? It's beyond the control of the owner, beyond the control of the contractor. So the only way for you to actually manage or mitigate that is to provide some contingencies in your budget early on, right? So, but I would always say this, that though inflation can be actually projected, so you could actually make a good guess what will be the inflation next year based on historical data, economic data. But there's one big financial risk that is actually bigger than inflation, and that is Forex, foreign exchange. You know, Singapore dollar, the Thailand baht, you know, the ringgit, the peso, the dong, and everything else. It swings every single day, right? And we have projects wherein, especially in the Philippines, you know, we started the project at 51 peso per dollar, and the peso just, you know, devaluated all the way to 59.2. Can you imagine the amount of impact on that one? So what we do during planning is that we already tell our customer that, sir, if the peso will devaluate by this much, so we calculate the risk on a per peso. So, like for example, you have a 1 billion peso project. The impact of that one is about 5 to 6 million per peso devaluation. So you can compute all of this, and then the owner has to set that aside as part of the contingency, because this risk is beyond anybody's control, right? The Forex. But then I'll go back to what I presented a while ago. Safety, quality, and time. All those risks that are identified will always have financial impact, right? If there's any delay, financial. If there's issue with quality, there's cost impact. If there's issue with safety, same thing, cost impact. So I think the biggest learnings that we have is to have foresight. The number one is foresight, and that's a skill that every QS should have. It's a difficult skill to actually develop, but it can only be developed by constant practice and using it and understanding it in your project every single day. What will happen in 2 weeks? What will happen in 6 powerful contributor to financial planning in the project. So I hope I was able to share with you some really good insights on how inflation can actually work. But Seth mentioned about the trade wars. I'm in the middle of doing the paper actually for the impact of tariff on our projects. So the impact of tariffs would impact from the buyer's point of view, because you're basically paying for the taxes. Tariff is a tax. So if your country is outside of the US, the impact of this US tariffs will be different to your country, right? If you're doing your project within the US, then it will really be inflationary. But we know, not discussing geopolitical reasons or long-term economic plays for both China and the US, but all our countries are just actually watching right now of how it will affect our budgets. I think Dr. Zaili mentioned also and said that the impact on your budget, you might have to stop or maybe recalculate or recalibrate your strategies and methodologies just to cope with the impact of these tariffs. Thank you.
Agree. Agree with all of you. The very powerful insights. Is there something that you would like to add as well, Eugene, on in terms of the tariffs or the taxes? You know, the movement of our companies wherever we operate. No, Eugene being in Singapore, Seth in Thailand, Reiner in Philippines, and Zuhaili in Malaysia. Me being in Auckland, where we have 15% of GST. Imagine how you have post-contract, any movements will have to be captured, and we have the proper contingency, reasonable enough to cover for these risks.
Yeah, so that's a tough one because if we put too much contingency in, we won't get the work. Too low
Yes.
or no
That's true.
contingency, when things hits the fan, we are in trouble. So if for when I advise my clients, I would for tariffs, sorry, for exchange, because when projects are in Singapore, Singapore dollar is always strong, right? And versus, so when we buy from overseas, so long it's Southeast Asia, we should be relatively safe. However, when we go beyond that and we look at it, things like Europe or the US, then we are open to the euro and the US dollar, and that's where we start looking at anywhere between 1.32 Sing dollar to US, or 1.35, 1.36. So in every contractor, so speaking as contractors, they would have a finance controller over there. And what the project director does is work very closely with the person on money to hedge, what's to buy, what can we buy ahead. So I understand that some contractors, they will buy US, like now, right? US dollar has tanked, dropped at to 1.34 dollar. It was 1.35 something, right? Is it a good time to buy? Will it drop further, right? And so finance will then start to shore up on US dollars so that they can buy materials from overseas. Tariffs is a tricky one, because it can come anytime. Over the last couple of weeks, and I understand that contractors are now thinking of how to hedge it, but they have done some. In fact, this morning I was with or major contractor, because they are looking at Terminal 5, and that's like an 8-9 year project, right? And how do we hedge that? So we are doing some studies to see how if there is really a reasonable hike of 10%, not the 140%, yeah. So if it's a reasonable hike, that would probably overall contract some. They may take a hit of between 3% to 6%, because a certain hit on let's say on oil, right, will actually affect things like structural steel,
Definitely.
oil-based products, like so waterproofing and so on and so forth, your reinforcement bars. It could even be a 30% hit, but 30% of 30% of structure would mean it's a 3 to 6% hit of overall construction cost. So that is within a so-called a 5% contingency. So it became a very scientific approach, but we need to work with those FCs, financial controllers, to able to establish this, and it can't be just roughly it's going to be this. So we went into detail, like what is going to be affected, which is, let's say, structure, the steel, reinforcement bars, structural steel, how much percentage over all costs. Let's say structure is 25%, 30%, and we went into that detail to say, yeah, okay, a 5, a 6% is good, and or a 3% is good, because it's a short-term 1 year project or 2 year project. So I think my advice would be you need to have a worldview. So QS must have worldview. We need to work with the financial controllers who are able to shore up credit, credit, when I say credit means dollars, or when on future buyings, to be able to, as building economists, to be able to know the relation of cost increase to the specific trade, and that relation to the overall trade over the whole time span. So it's to me, it's going to be scientific, but in fact, to this morning I enjoyed the discussion, because it really shows that when a quantity surveyor has that breadth and depth of economics understanding, how tariffs and how for example, what Rhino said is the dollar, how the forex actually work. Actually, as a very smart contractor, will be able to make money, because he will be able to know where to price properly. First, he'll win the project. Second, he
Yes.
know how to apply those what he has hedged or what he has forward buy, and so within that project itself. But it's not a single. So my point is not a single discipline thought. It's not just quantity surveying. It's worldview, it's finance, it's working with banks,
Yes.
and it's really working collaboratively with the whole value chain. I tell you, in fact, this morning we were even talking about the whole, how is material going to be transported, because it's going to be different, right? Because of freight and all that. So that is how interesting this topic is, and
It's chicken
I
and
hope
egg.
I've provided some insight. Yeah. Thank you, AJ.
Yes, very much. I believe that our viewers now are already, their minds are already information. They're doing quantity surveying. Most of our viewers are within that field. But I believe that this discussion on how we need to approach this is a global problem, and having knowledge on the current events and what will be the outcome, or how this will affect our way of life, our way of work, is very important. Now, picking up from all the discussions or the insights that you've made, one thing I think that I find very important is the value of data. So with the data, you were able to analyze percentages, what we can work on, high-level estimates, where is the approach going, how is this risk allocated for, who is going to be hugely affected by this risk as it surfaced. And then now we move into our second question. I'm trying to get towards the best practice of controlling the project cost. So we all have these risks, we have identified them, but now the project is live. So what do you think will be the best practice on controlling project costs amid the volatility in materials and labor markets? I think let's speak on and have Seth to speak on this question.
Sure, wonderful. Really enjoying the discussion so far, and the thoughts on the QS not just the one measuring and costing, but also being an economic expert and of all affairs, right? QS has to do every single thing. So I think moving back towards more of the classic things to consider. I know there was a lot of topic on tariffs and forex and economic things, but kind of bringing it back to in various locations. Let's break it down into a couple of things, right? So first and foremost, get it right from the beginning, okay? So things like cost estimating, cost plans, etc. Again, ensuring that the market trends and the data that you have correctly, as best as you can, portray the expected cost output and cost input during the construction duration of your project. So you kind of mitigate any kind of unwarranted surprises. And for the ones that are kind of happening, you're aware of that already. Averages have been considered and factored so that the pinch won't hurt as much, right? Now, that's from a costing kind of point of view. But the basis of the information of that costing as well is quite key. So, in an ideal world, as every QS will agree with me, You get a full set of detailed specifications and drawings. You measure and quantify all of that out, and then you have a beautifully compiled, comprehensive set of documents and costs and quantities that's fully priced by the contractor, lump sum, the end, right? So the only variations you have to worry about are client changes, right? I don't know any project that has that beautiful dream. And unfortunately, there's always aspects of the project where there are gray areas. There are provisional sums, etc., and those sort of things. In Thailand, we've seen a trend of, typically we try to recommend not more than 5 to 10% unknown before you get into a contract, right? We've seen a trend where developers are in such a rush to get and hit the site on construction immediately, where we're going to tender quicker, the information is not as robust, up to 50% provisional sums, which is crazy, right? Check accordingly, So I think first and foremost is, we always hear the phrase slow life or whatever, but it's telling the clients, look, you may benefit by hitting the site earlier and getting investors interested, but you're going to just pay, you're just going to end up paying for it, at the end of the day. So some investors and developers as well, they're not stupid to that fact. They're going to want to make sure that the design is robust. They're going to want to make sure that there's not going to be cost escalations. And if there are, the client and developers are not going to take shortcut value engineering options, right? That may compromise the end product. So getting that kind of basis of cost planning and budget set up is really, really, really important. So in terms of the materials, labor and fluctuations, etc., all that to be as carefully as you can, as comprehensively as you can, considered. Now, there's also contractual mechanisms, right? So making sure that your robust variation order for management procedures, making sure whether you have, agree to incorporate a price fluctuation clause within your contract documents, and the legal requirements at that point of that contract. You may know that there may be a law to raise the minimum wage, right, later in the year. So it would be prudent to consider that as a potential cost escalation and build that in and kind of have that open discussion with the contractor at the beginning. Otherwise, the contractor may very smartly price for it. You don't pick up on it, and then they benefit, when certain things kind of happen. So those contractual mechanisms need to be set up, defined and clear, and then mutually agreed by all parties. Okay. Now, just to bring it back into a little bit more like classic points, right? So contract mechanisms, keeping up to date with the markets and deviations. The most basic thing, right, I would say is have the appropriate contingencies in place, right? So, where there are gray areas, make sure that those are sufficiently catered for. Where there are missing items, make sure you have placeholders, right? You got to remember, some developers, some of the people are in it for the long term, and some of those guys are not, right? So some of them could be just employees. They may be thinking, let's hit my KPI and get the construction cost as low as possible. I get my bonus, and then I'm going to resign anyway, so I don't care about what happens later on. So those are the sort of things that you really have to be careful about and be strong about. Have placeholders for everything that you feel is missing or inappropriate, right? Or insufficiently priced for. Having that regular, transparent communication with the client at all parties, so nobody gets surprised. And stick to the schedule, right? A lot of the QSs, we always bear the brunt of delays. Developers will say, right, I need the drawings out. The designers will say, oh, I need another 3 more weeks. Okay, great. But I still want the construction completion to finish on time. So, Mr. QS, your 2 months of tender review and stuff, can you do it in 2 days? That sort of pressure that kind of comes in. So sticking to the schedule, not from the QS side, but enforcing everyone else to kind of abide by that, right? And I think another good recommendation I would say is have some value engineering options in your back pocket, okay? Those are things where it may not be ideal to enforce because it may dilute the end product, but those are necessary things to cater for unwarranted, unforecasted surprises. So have those in your back pocket, have those discussed with the contractor at the beginning. Of discussing, planning, and estimating and all of that. So at the end of the day, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yes, that's a good takeaway. And also, it gives you the thought, what is the best procurement strategy then? How do you find that the early contractor involvement? This is something that we should be welcoming. I believe Singapore has already been into it for a number of years now. The early contractor involvement, instead of jumping right into the contract and then tendering it or engaging a contractor right away, having a design and build, which will probably having a design and build strategy would not be as feasible in terms of cost. And I think as Seth has mentioned KPI, I would like to move to the next question where I would like to let's hear from Reiner in terms of what do you consider as the best practice in providing reasoned advice in terms of feasibility studies on potential projects from the view of a consultant.
Okay, AJ, thank you. But before I answer that, I would like to add on to Seth. Seth made a very good point, A lot of project owners actually try to rush and start the project right away, right? I've seen a multi-billion project that they wanted to start the project when their drawings were just past schematic design. Now they were able to start the project 3 months ahead, and they were delayed by 2 years. So you save 3 months and you lose 3 years. That doesn't make sense. And that's why the intro to our session this afternoon was a good pre-construction. Spend 3 or 4 more days or maybe even 2 more weeks in planning. That will save you a lot of construction duration if you do it properly. So I second Seth on that one. And Eugene mentioned that some items like oil can affect the prices of other products. That's really true, right?
Yes.
And all of this can only be identified during pre-construction planning. You don't, and I will always say this: if you change the wall on paper, it will not cost you anything. But once you install that on site and you're changing it, it will cost you a lot of money. So let me get to your question about feasibility studies. One of the most important thing about feasibility studies is understanding what is the goal of your customer. At the end of the day, especially for real estate, they want to make sure they hit their IRRs, their internal rate of return, their profit margins, and all their financial goals, right? Once you understand that, you'll be able to advise them well on what they can do. Now, on feasibilities, for example, there are times that QSI is being hired before the architect, and that should be the case for all of us. When there's a new project, the first question of a project is always how much, not how does it look like, right? And I think everyone will agree here that the first question is always how much. If you're going to build a house, you don't say it will be a blue house. No, the first question is always how much. Same thing for a hotel. So getting a feasibility done is always understanding how. Doing feasibility studies, aside from our estimating, because estimating is just part of us, but you have to understand financial accounting. How does a financial income statement work? The revenue versus the expense, the gross profit, and at the end of the day, the EBITDA, and then the net income. All of these things come into play when you're a QS. especially in the feasibility study stage. So for projects, for example, infrastructure projects, they also wanted uh, know, the proponents would like to know, how many years can I recoup the investment that I put into this project? If it's a government project, they also ask the question, how much will I spend for maintaining this infrastructure? And how much revenue can actually be taken by the government to maintain such infrastructure? So the understanding of the QS on KPIs. Let's talk about KPIs. So a lot of estimators actually use the cost per square, like cost per square. It's a hotel. It's $1,500 to $2,200 per square. Apparently, we don't use that. We actually use the what they call the Pareto rule, Comet rule. What it is it's an analogy wherein the bulk of the weight of a comet is in the comet itself, and the 80% of that is in the comet. 20% is actually on the tail. Once you identify the 80% of the cost, right? And 80% of the cost belong to 20% of the items. So if you have 1,000 line items in your BOQ, 20%, 200 line items will complete study that you actually understand what are the key cost drivers of your projects. Sometimes estimators should focus on really little things that don't have a lot of impact on the total project cost. So the Pareto rule says 80% of the cost belong to 20% of the items. So we do this exercise during for feasibility, what we call the cost driver analysis. And from there, the designer can actually understand early on. So let me give you an example. So a customer has 2,000 square meters in the middle of the city, I said, and asked us, Rainer, what can we do with this 2,000 square meters? And I said, well, if you build an office building, here's how much it is. And even without the drawings, using KPIs, key performance indices from historical data, you should be able to already tell them that the concrete will be between 0.48 to 0.52 cubic meter per square meter, without telling them the dollar per square meter. So we don't use dollar per square meter or peso per square meter on feasibilities. We actually use KPIs. So from there, you could also, if it's a high-rise building, you're looking at 185 to 230 kilogram per cubic meter on your rebars. Your formworks will be between 1.1 to 2.25 square meter formworks per square meter of CFA, of construction floor area. So all of these things matter during planning of the feasibility. Like, for example, what will be the impact of copper? If the project will be done 3 years from now, 4 years from now, what will be the cost of copper by that time? Building, you will have 125 volt ampere per square meter for a manufacturing that could go all the way up to 180 to 220 volt ampere per square meter. But the ability of the QS to actually answer these questions during the feasibility stage spells the difference between a profitable project and a failed project. So you guys said, so we're also wearing the hat of an economist. Yes, you are. And in fact, you're also wearing the hat of a financial accountant. So you have to understand financial income statements when you do financial feasibility studies. And again, maybe on our future CPDs, we'll share with you all of these learnings that we have over the years. And I think I'll wrap up the portion of this question into this. Sometimes, and actually most of the time, we must educate our project owners. Okay.
Definitely.
A smart way. Sometimes the project owner would tend to be the smartest person in the room, who hires a QS but doesn't listen to the QS. And I'm sure Seth and Eugene can attest to this, and Dr. Zaili, that our project owners tend to be smart, or actually they might not be smart at all when they hire a QS and not listening to the QS, right? So we must start educating the project owners, because when owners start to force their way into the project without listening to the QS, that's the biggest risk that the project can ever have. And I think everyone can here can agree to that we need to have the courage to actually
Reiner, is there something that you would like to add, Eugene, on as an add-on to the takeaway?
Yeah, Rainer, what you have mentioned hit the nail on the head, that we as quantity surveyors, whether is it consultant QS or contractor QS, we need to know these things on our basic quantity surveying practice and procedures. I mean, contract is another whole new topic, yeah.
Oh,
But
yes.
just on costing alone, I remember when I started my career. I was as an apprentice. That was when many years ago. Yeah. And we were looking at my grandfather telling me that of 2.5 to 3 feet of concrete per meter square. Or in those days we were talking about foot run and in feet and inches lah. But those controlled quantities and building economics somehow over the years have been lost, and I feel have been lost. And when now you talk about concrete usage index, you talk, it became a designer thing and no more a QS. Do we know what is the cost per bed per hospitals? Do we know the cost per key? If I for hotels, and if I ask a quantity surveyor what key, because for a suite you can have 3 to 5 keys versus a normal studio room with 1 key, you see.
Right.
So these things have somehow, I feel, in our generation. So I'm 50 this year, and I just find that it's being eroded. And if PICQS can really pick this up and get this as a standard that can be worked out, that all quantity surveyors know this as quantities, being able to know what estimates exactly of what you mentioned, amount of steel that goes into the building. Is it 250 kg per meter cube for beam, or 85 to 95 for slab, and for earthquake requirements, and so forth, right? That really will elevate the QS profession, because quantity surveyors and consultants will estimate it right. Quantity surveyors for contractors will be able to come up with the right price, and knowing that anything lower would mean detriment to the project in safety, in quality, or in just wrong price that will hit you in 3 to 5 years later. So Rainer, you've really touched something very, very important.
I know everybody's on point here, and I believe that Dr. Zuhaili, and myself on behalf of PICQS, RICS, every professional body who's rendering services as to how the standards of the profession will be carried out, picks a lot of things from the insights that we're having in this discussion. The 80-20 rule: concentrate on the big ticket items, make sure that you are knowledgeable in terms of how this is going to be. A certain or a small item on the cost or the concrete rebar ratio is essential, but is it really applicable project across the project, or is it a different concrete rebar ratio for every type of structure? So those things are the basics, but it helps that it would be good to hear from Zuhaili as to how the structure on the syllabus of is going on in a UTM.
Okay, I think you guys has bring up a very valid point from the technical point of view. I think in terms of the competencies, in any academic institution, we try to cater those requirements, but You know, we know the technical, you know how to measure, you know how to quantify, you get all the cost data. But when it comes into the meeting, we be the last person to speak. Or we only speak when we've been called. We never, I think, not to say never, but majority of the QS would just stay back and, you know, wait until being asked. But what I always promote to my students is that you must show that you have the competencies. Although we are not the lead consultant, but we are, I mean, we've been talking about being financial advisor, contract administrator, economist. We know everything, though we don't know super detail, but we should have raised our concern. We should voice out our opinion during the meeting and discussion. So I think that soft skill is what is lacking. We do have it in the syllabus, but it is up to an individual whether they want to take up or not. So when it comes into industry, the same thing when you meet up a very prominent architect, you know, architect who've been talking from the start of the meeting to the end. So we decided, okay, I'll just sit and, you know, respond when being requested to. Thank you.
Thank
AJ,
you.
may
Yes, yes.
I add something to what Dr. Zuhaili has mentioned?
Yeah, please,
So
please.
Dr. Zoili has touched on something which in my observation as well. So I've gone through the Singapore way of teaching, right? And from Polytechnic Tertiary Education, IHL, and basically it's the QS profession is very reactive. That means speak and unspoken, or you know, we think we only do cost. But when I was in the University of Reading, when I was studying there, they taught us to be proactive, but being proactive cross multiple discipline on knowing things on including design and construction methodology. So part of the part of the syllabus would be on design philosophy. So you'll study things like from Le Corbusier, Peter Rice on design, sustainability, IT in construction, and so on and so forth. To give us the understanding. In fact, I remembered the major project that we had. There was one piece of paper that we given, please design a 60,000 stadium. And we were everything but the client. So we had to do design, we had to do engineering. I had to balance the bending moment of the banana truss. I had to do the estimation, construction management, lift the from behind, you know, lift the roof from behind and jack it up, you know, cost it as well, and even carry out the facilities management strategy. My point is that I think the IHLs, the schools, has a very, very important part to play, whereby if we can teach quantity surveyors to be proactive, equip them with the relevant knowledge on IT, sustainability, knowing how to look at ecotech and tasks in terms of how one affect the other, even U values, you know, we will be more participative in meetings and then understand the cause. And even now, like I said, I'm a quantity surveyor, but one question came this morning was if we would change the strategy of lifting and jacking of the roof rather than build a crash deck and build a roof, what would be the cost difference? I would say let's go and lift the roof because that's more it's cheaper than doing a crash deck. You see, this comes with understanding of construction technology, methodology, and so on and so forth. So, and that means that we will step forward by the best architect in the world, but if it can't be built and is not bankable, we are the ones that hold that source because on the cost of construction, we hold the bankability, you see. So I believe that if IHLs can change the way, so I'm headed to Reading and Taylor University the next couple of weeks as a guest lecturer. So that's what we'll be doing in changing, and I'll be quizzing the quantity surveyors. Hey, you know, how about a sum path analysis in Malaysia? Is it going to be the same as Singapore? How about KL? And you know, and that will change the mindset of the quantity surveyor that hey, we're just not only just costing, we should try to participate a bit more in design, construction management, and even construction technology. So kudos to Dr. Zuhaili on what you're doing in the university, and very happy, and we as institution very happy to work together with PIQS and with the IHLs to see how we can better the profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eugene. And Seth, I saw you sending a message in the group chat. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. In the essence of time, I believe that all our panelists here are trying to share a lot, because the topic is very, very vast, to the point that 1 hour is never enough. And echoing from where the insights coming from our panelists, we do need to learn a lot more. The construction technology is part of the syllabus of the course of quantity surveying in UTM. It also forms part of the structured trainings of our organization, PICQS, and also in RICS. So this is a great avenue for our quantity surveyors that we have here in the viewers, the attendees, to push hard on and invest in yourself and then learn more. Coming from the insights of our successful professionals here in this room, go and challenge yourself for the better. So this is something that you would like to add on and fuel on your message in the group chat over here.
I think so much has been said, which is wonderful. But as Zuhaili kind of highlighted just now, the ability to speak and convince is such a key character trait, because you could be a scientist, like you could be a nuclear physicist capable QS, right? But if you aren't able to express yourself succinctly in a confident way, then no one's going to believe you, right? And honestly, that's probably the safer versus the other one, which is being able to convince people but not knowing what you're doing or what the technical aspects is about, which will lead people astray, right? So yeah, I think it's just a case of you're always going to have different characteristics, finding the right balance between that, and then playing off one another to make sure you have that best combination.
Yes. And then Reiner earlier touched on educating the owners. Actually, this is very important, because as an owner, or let's say coming from a client perspective, they would always want the best for their project that they're working on. I want this and that. They have a list of wish lists that they want to be implemented in this project, not knowing, or sometimes, or they're putting aside the fact that this will cost something. What you want and how you're going to build it is always a matter of cost and how long this will be done. So my urge to my fellow quantity surveyors here is to always think out of the box. Have a mindset of being the owner, from the shoes of the owner, and making him realize, is this feasible? Is the cost feasible? Is the time feasible? So the triangle, the factors of the cost drivers are very, very important, and highlight this. So every time we write an email, we say, the project manager or the owner wants this. Okay, so from your knowledge, give them a best high level estimate. This is how it's going to cost you. The construction is already ongoing. This will affect how you're going to build it. We may have some abortive works which will cost this, and this. Okay, another $1 million of overrun. Are you prepared for it? So always talk in the sense of dollars and cents. I think we'll always make something flip on from their chairs, because another hat that we would want to avoid wearing as quantity surveyors, to me, is being the magician. So the last thing that you would want to be, I think everybody here will agree, sometimes because we need to deliver, we're pushed towards being a magician. So that's one thing the last thing that I would like to be as a quantity surveyor. Okay, now we have time for a last question. So this is going to be, anybody can pick this on. We're towards the high-profile project delays and budget overruns. what do you consider as lessons learned? Because high-profile projects can have very great impacts on cost overruns and also on the delays. So let's start with, okay, let's pick it from Zuhaili, from the academe perspective. Oh, sorry. You're on mute. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, I do have a bit of experience before joining the university. And of course, and being in academia, we also conducted research, we collaborate and do consultancy services. From Malaysia experience, I think there are some points that I would like to share, which I think are not directly with QS scope of services, but we can contribute so that the project will be much, much more excellent and successful. There are many, of course, but I think I would like to highlight three matters in Malaysian perspective. The first would be, I would say, weak initial planning and scope for the project. Because as I think one of the speakers just now mentioned that sometimes the client wanted to kick off the project as soon as possible. So there were inadequate feasibility studies and also poor definition of the project scope, right? So when the scope is not clear, planning is not there, so you are actually planning to fail. So that is the first one. The second one, this is very also common in Malaysia, land acquisition matter and also utility relocation. So land acquisition, because sometimes for public project, they overtake the land which is belong to the public. So there is a process for them to acquire the land. So sometimes the project team kick off without settle the land acquisition matters. So when the project has started, then we have issue to deal with whoever that residing on that particular land. And also the utility, because we are in the process of getting all the utility mapping data into the system, but there are still areas which is not yet covered with that information. So sometimes when right, so I believe that many of you have heard the case of huge fire back in Kuala Lumpur last week. So that is one of the issue which is related to utility and also construction project. Last but not least, this is, I would say, very far from QS scope of work, but somehow or other, this aspect has impacted on project, which is on the political influences and also the policy shift. So from Malaysia perspective, because there are, in the past 5 years, we have several, maybe 2 or 3 government changes. So when we change the government, their priorities also different. So that has impact on the project. If I can pick example, one is our high-speed rail project between Singapore and Kuala Lumpur has been on and off. And the other one is our East Coast Rail project. When we changed government, so they were issue with the alignments of the rail. Everyone will try to make sure that the rail passing by or go through their parliamentary area, things like that. So I think these 3 factor, which if we can as a QS highlight these matters and also try to help the client to make sure that these 3 factors being catered at the early stage of the project, that we can minimize the impact on the project later on. Thank you, AJ. You are mute now.
Yep. Thank you, Zuhaili. And I think just a quick one, we would like, it tickled my interest and would like to check with Seth, given your practice in Thailand. So what has been the effect of the calamity, the recent earthquake that has happened in
Thailand, earthquake, Thailand's never really had such an earthquake situation in recent years, so it was a big scare for everybody. In terms of immediate impacts, obviously everyone couldn't do any work on the Friday. Everyone was paranoid about going back to the office and going back to their homes if they lived in condominiums. But from a construction market perspective, what we've noticed is that there's been a bigger delay, I guess, in terms of fund transfers for condominium sales. A lot of people are panicking, right? They're wondering whether their building that the condominium that they've just bought, the unit they've just purchased or about to purchase or about to transfer the final amount, whether it's earthquake proof. So all of a sudden, everyone is now running around, and landlords are trying to do their best to get structural engineers to give these approvals that these buildings are sufficiently and structurally sound. So the immediate impact is, I think, cash flow for developers, with a lot of these new tenants or tenants in the purchase kind of holding back with regards to that. You've got a lot of existing projects where the clients have now just said, stop everything. Can we get the structural engineer and the construction manager to confirm that the rebar testing specifications are all suitable and in line with the specifications and the legal requirements for that? But after that kind of couple of weeks or so, I think everything will kind of smooth out. And certainly some projects already have very quickly got that approval to proceed, and the construction stuff is going ahead. So I think there is probably going to be a knock-on effect for the next 1-2 months or so. But hopefully things will kind of continue on as it is. Albeit a lot more stringent checks in place for just from a contractor, from a client, when they say, hey, Seth, your budget for the structural cost is too high. Can you reduce that? I probably expect less questions on those sort of things.
Because you have allowed for this has been allowed for.
Correct.
Before I move and then check on a cap perspective from the Philippine practice, I would like to check with you, Jean. Singapore being, they say less prone to calamities such as earthquakes. From the consultant perspective, how would you have this like covered in tender? Non-exist, I mean, unlikely doesn't mean it will not exist, right?
Yeah.
So how do you incorporate this when it comes to providing consultancy for pre-contract?
Yeah, so the recent events in Thailand and Myanmar, we are of course when we looking back, we are thankful we actually moved into the Euro code early, which was that has seismic and earthquake requirements inside. You'll be surprised that our buildings along the Bay Area, for example, like the Sail, have earthquake and seismic requirements as well. And there were studies even done at buildings along the East Coast all the way to Tampines and airports where there's marine clay. That what's going to happen if there's an earthquake in Indonesia, and how will the tremors affect us? And I have to say that in my lifetime, I went through like 2 or 3 tremors, and it really felt actually from Singapore, right? You think everything is safe. You actually felt the building literally going up and down, and I really thought that I was on a Richter scale in Indonesia, and it still affected Singapore. But coming back to your question on, I would like to use the word resilience as well. So in order when we plan for our buildings, our costing would in fact would include things like increase in platform level. For example, new buildings around the East Coast have to be 2 meters above the high tide level, and we have to add on soil, or make sure we jack up the base, lowest floor slab up, and so on and so forth. So we would have actually taken that into account. We would also, in our green mark, there are already requirements for flood controls where we and swales where we either slow down the flood water, or we take in water into within the building to be dissipated later. So it's something that we have actually put it within our code of practice and prepared for it. To say the government here, has really prepared Singapore for asset proofing Singapore, and also following resilience planning in Singapore, like floods and all that. But having said, we still get our floods. Just today we had there was a mini water ponding outside my place because all of a sudden it just rained for like 20 minutes. It was so bad that you can't see the building next to us. And through it, there was actually ponding everywhere in the Marine Parade area. Now with climate change happening and rising sea level, certain times of the first quarter of the year, from January to March, there's no rain, but when it's high tide, certain parts of the East Coast actually floods already. It's actually true and present danger that's actually is thinking far, far, far ahead. In fact, there is actually when they plan 50 years ahead and what's going to happen, even to a situation of 1.2 meters rise in the sea level.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Actually, just a side note, here in New Zealand, we're also globally we're looking into the rising sea levels. No, it is also being looked into in Wellington in particular, because the Bay Area there is where they find that there's a potential.
Yep.
A great increase in the sea level would affect the city area.
In fact,
So-
in June, I'm headed down to Invercargill. So to make
I'll
to
probably
give,
see you.
to give a keynote as well with the New Zealand Institute of Quantity Surveyors on the quantity survey looking at things like sustainability and resilience and how we can actually play a part in that. But so my message there is not only just costing, but it's also knowing what it goes into sustainability and knowing what it goes in resilience and having to be able to participate in that as well.
Yes. Okay. We entered into a technical glitch over there. But last but not the least, Reiner, addressing our high-profile projects, cost overruns, and delays. Everybody in this panel, thank you very much. Your insights are very, very well thought of, and it gives us a very good view on where do we need to look into, what knowledge we need to expound on. Go ahead, Reiner.
Yeah, well, among the big ticket items, and usually it's the infrastructure projects that's really suffering this cost overruns and delays. Number one on the list is always the wrong assumptions. During planning, when you actually employ the wrong assumptions, to your cost, and biggest ingredient to delays and cost overruns. That's the first one. The second one is actually the lack of foresight. The lack of foresight. That means you were not able to identify the risk early on. And we've seen this in projects, not just here in the Philippines, but worldwide. In fact, we had a meeting last week with Contract X, for identifying risk. And only 1 out of 4 projects can actually be completed on time. 1 out of 4. That's such a low ratio, right? So it's the lack of foresight, identifying risk ahead of time. I think we as QS should develop that foresight, and some of us can actually develop the skill further to become a risk manager. That you're the one actually managing the risk. And in some projects, there's a dedicated contract risk manager, which is totally different from the job of a cost manager. So that's the second one. The third one is what they call picking a penny and losing a dollar. And some of the project proponents, sometimes they would try to nitpick and try to save on little things, and missing the point and losing the bigger items. So understanding that, you have to focus on what's driving your cost up. And that just solves the portion of cost overruns. And the delays would usually be, again, going back to my first point, which is the wrong assumptions. The fourth one would always be related to late changes. How many of our projects that we have owners who are changing it demolish this because the owner feels like it's not the right thing to do, or a lack of foresight on the part of the designer that you have to change it. So again, late changes is the second biggest ingredient for cost overruns and delays. And I think the fifth one is this, and this is a personal experience that I have: the project without a QS. Because the owner built his first hotel, he thought that he knows everything, and he based this second hotel out of his experience from the first hotel, which is not bad, right? I mean, he was successful with the first hotel, and the second hotel was terrible. About 18 months delayed. He was like $8 million cost overrun. For a small hotel project like that, it can hurt his bottom line. And so he called me and said, Rai, can you actually do an audit? And when I went back to him with all the insights on cost and the KPIs, he fell from his chair. He could have done it differently. I said, you know what, you could have hired a QS at a much cheaper rate and save all those headaches and save all those money early on if you have the QS with you. And I think that's something that PICQS and RICS would continue to express in the market, in the industries that we serve, that the cost consultant, the QS, the quantity surveyor, is one of the most important pillar that you will have on your project. So don't scrimp on your QS. Don't try to force them, with their fees and everything. And I would always say this to our customers: would you actually pay your QS 2% or 3% of that savings, or even 10% of that savings? Again, the value of the QS is I would say you can never complete your project without a good QS. You're just increasing the risk of failure if you don't have a QS by your side. So I think that's the learnings that I have over the years, and I hope that I was able to impart some of this to everyone here this afternoon. Thank you. And by the way, Seth made a very good point. He said, getting it right from the start. I think that's again a very important skill that a QS should have, is that you have to get it right from the start. And if you have a good idea, if you have a good cost insight, a good idea can become stale if not communicated. You have to communicate that good idea. If you have that idea in your mind and you're not telling anyone, that is a useless idea. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Rainer. Okay, coming from our panelists, a few words to wrap up our panel discussion. Thank you very much. Let's start it from Seth.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been insightful and very interesting to hear the opinions and experience from my fellow panelists. Certainly a couple of things that I wasn't aware of or wasn't really thinking about, but it's kind of tickled my fancy a little bit. I'm going to add the study of economics as part of the performance indicators of my staff. Something like that to monitor, and Forex, right? So Forex will be. But all in all, I think for me personally, I've really enjoyed this session, and I personally have learned a lot as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Seth. Let's hear from Eugene.
Yeah, thank you very much, AJ. Yeah, I'd like to echo Rainer and Seth. I really learned a lot, and the discussion this time is very enriching. I probably the takeaway that I'd like to everyone to have is these three letters: PPE. It's not personal protective equipment, but PPE is more of first we have to prepare. If you have to, in order to prepare ourselves, we we need for our meetings with our clients, know the project well, the project dossiers, prepare ourselves mentally, and so on and so forth. And then the next is we need to plan. Whether you are a quantity surveyor of the a consultant or quantity surveyor for the contractor or even the subcontractor, you need to plan well. And without that planning, whether is it cost overruns or delays, all the things that you can think of that's negative is going to hit you in that project. And the worst case is you can actually go bust. And the last one is E, which is experience. I think we need to get that tacit knowledge in, and that experience that you have, whether you're young QS in PICQS, or you are that you want to get that experience, or you are a senior QS, and you share that experience, right? And then you will be able to, then we can actually better the industry. So PPE will be my for you guys to take away and think about. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My concluding remark will be, I wish best of luck to those participants joining the webinar today. I hope it opened up your mind. You can see that, though we name ourselves as QS, but they are very broad area for you to branch in, for you to be expert in. One of those could be RICQS, apart from other traditional core QS competencies. So good luck with your professional journey.
Thank you very much. Rainer, would you like to add in we can cap as much as I don't want to end this. Go ahead, Rainer.
Yeah, just before I head off to the airport, I actually listed down all the items that Seth, that Eugene, and Dr. Zohaili, because I always believe that a short pencil is actually better than a long memory, right? So I always list down the good insights that I get from a discussion like this. It's some people think that when you're the speaker, people take it from you. As a speaker, you actually learn a lot from your co-speakers and from questions. So I would always say, learn as you go. Never stop learning. And every time a person would say, I know that already, then that person has stopped learning. So learn as you go, learn as much as you can. What you were 5 years ago is totally different from what you are now. So just continue learning. And I leave this probably with a short note that, the advantage of having a QS, of having a mentor by your side. So in your career, as you're growing up, or maybe for those who are younger here, always find someone who can be a good mentor to you, especially in this space, because mix of lawyer, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, you're an economist, you're an accountant, you're a safety practitioner, you're a scheduler, you're a planner, a programmer. This profession is so important in construction that I can't imagine a world of construction without the QS. So again, guys, thank you for having me here. To my co-panel speakers, I learned a lot from you guys today. I'll keep these notes with me. AJ, thank you. PICQS, Lintan of RICQS, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our dear panelists. And indeed, it was an insightful night or afternoon to all of us, because from the very well-known or in the field of quantity surveying, cost estimation, consultancy, and contracting. Thank you very much for sharing with us your time, your insights, your knowledge. I'm sure a lot of our viewers have a lot of takeaways, and we would gladly have a copy of your notes, Sir Rainer, and we wish you have a safe flight. And we'll see you in Invercargill, Eugene, this June. And we hope that everybody will have a good night. Before we move on to, I believe, a Q&A, as a link has been shared for the question and answer. We'll have a short break. I'm going to turn over the mic now to our host, Engineer Jarrell. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you after the break.
Okay. So while we're on a break, I would like to take this moment to highlight upcoming events from the PICQS and a direct entry route to RICS. So on April 12, 2025 would be the basics of quantity surveying with an added focus on PH government. Then on April 26, we'll have our CPD number 10. So it's gonna be held online. Topics is contracts and cost management, and speaker is Yumin. This is hosted by the Singapore chapter. Then on May 24, 2025, we'll have a face-to-face CPD number 11, topic in understanding RA 9184 and its implementing rules and regulations. Then on May 17, we'll have a hybrid CPD event about the technical conference with PICE, Modern Technology in Construction. Then we'll have our QS Summit, Manila 2025 on October 18, 2025 to Sitani, Manila. So all of these upcoming events can be visited in the PICQS website. Okay. Then I'd like to share if you want to learn more about quantity surveying, extend your knowledge. University Technology Malaysia is offering undergraduate degree in Bachelor in Quantity Surveying, Bachelor of Science in Construction. Then they also have postgraduate degree, Master of Science in Construction Contract Management. Then they have postgraduate degree, Master in Philosophy, Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Professional Practice. So if you have a question, maybe you can send a chat message to Zuhani. So I now proceed to the RICS. So RICS Southeast Asia Awards 2025, they have this ongoing open for nomination. It's free for all companies, teams, and individuals in built environment to participate. So you can scan the QR code here. If you need more details about it, you can message us also so that we can give you access to the details. So I'll briefly introduce the direct entry to RICS. So all PICQS corporate members and PICQS are eligible to join RICS as an associate member through the direct entry route. So you can email direct entry RICS. So for the eligibility to apply for direct entry, the applicant must meet the qualification experience requirements set out in the conditions of the direct entry qualification, and not have been referred on the associate assessment if you are applying for associate RICS. Have one prosper who is associate RICS with 4 years relevant experience post associate RICS or MICS or FRICS. Then CV or resume setting out the relevant experience and may be asked to provide their CPD record. Provide a letter from the professional body qualification provider where applicable, confirming their membership qualification is up to date and there are no regulatory matters ongoing or sanctions awarded against the applicant. This should include confirmation of how the applicant gained the qualification. So once eligibility for direct entry is confirmed, individuals will need to complete the final steps to qualify as associate RICS. Completion of the RICS professionalism module, confirmation from your prosper and assisting RICS member who supports your application, then payment of the direct entry application. So here are the QR codes for the membership fees if you'd like to get more details. If you have any questions regarding direct entry of RICS, you can put your questions in the chat box. I think we have representative from RICS that can answer your questions. Then if you want to start your application, here is the QR code for that. Okay, so I guess that's it for our break. I think we can now proceed with the question and answer. I'm gonna give back the floor to AJ for the questions.
Yes, okay. Thank you. I hope everyone has had a quick break or a bio break and some water. Okay, let's proceed with our Q&A. And I have the first question on screen. Okay, let's welcome our I hope it's not too late for you on your way to the airport. Still good? Okay. Okay. There actually in most CPDs that I have attended, I think this is one of those where our group chat has been actively receiving messages. Actually, they have questions in there as well, and they really appreciate your time and the insights that you have provided in this topic. No, and I believe if we can informally at this point invite each one of you to render a topic, like a more in-depth discussion of a topic on risk management or on cost control, we are inviting you informally now. And our global CPD committee will be in touch if you would like, or if your time permits, to have like a solo CPD session for our attendees, like in the next run of our global CPDs, because PICQS and RICS are also planning another joint or collaborative CPD. So stay tuned for that. Now, in terms of the questions, may I call in Jarrell if we have a few questions on the line, because I don't have a view on
Okay.
the link at the moment.
Yeah, so I can give you the questions.
Yes.
So the first question is, this is I think a good one. How do you manage your risks with limited data? And how do AI play a part in risk management and cost control?
Would like to take, let's check. Can you repeat the question, please, Jarrell?
Okay. I'll put it in the chat also. So
Yes, please.
how do you manage a risk with limited data?
Oh, I think since I've seen Eugene's comment in the chat box that he wouldn't mind sharing anything in the use of AI by QS, let us hear from Eugene and take on this question. How do you manage a risk with limited data, and how do AI play a part in risk management and cost control?
Okay. So there are two parts of this question. How do you manage a risk with limited data? I guess it's if whatever, if you don't have in front of you, and if you do have AI that helps to prompt you on to think of certain paths so that you can manage that risk, that would be good. But remember the PPE, the E that I mentioned, the experience is actually very important. I have seen quantity surveyors, consultant quantity surveyors, able to come up with cost plans on the cost appraisal, sorry, on the back of a napkin. And that is up to even 3 to 5% as accurate to what the tender is having, right? That's experience. But if when you don't have that much data, for example, you don't have the bore logs, or in terms of what's the geological formation below, that's where experience comes in. And you know for a fact, whereby, like, say you have the Ang Mo Kio formation, there's a lot of rocks below and boulders, or that's in the east coast of Singapore, there's marine clay that goes up to 50 to 90 meters deep. That's where experience will actually come in. But I guess with AI, and one thing I wanted to share is, so me and my buddies have been creating this AI for even rates and cost plans right now. We could one of my problem statements is that we as consultant quantity surveyors have worked on tender documents for 3 to 6 months. We pass it over to the contractor. He has only 1 month to digest. So we throw it to this software that we've created called AME, AME, Ask Me Everything. And Amy will be able to tell the quantity surveyor what are the things that they have to take note of, the indemnities, warranties, risks, for example, inside, and even do high level quantification. So, for example, we talk about the 80-20, right? I can tell you 80% of the cost comes from 20% of the steel bars from T22 to 32, and we have empirical evidence to show that. So I guess that's my answer. And with AI, there's a few. Right now, we are not only just asking on a GPT, in terms of generative chats, but we are looking at all the way from RPA, or even agentic agents that can help in carrying out this work. So that will be my answer, and very happy to see how we can work out the next stage, with the CPD, with the AI and the quantity survey. I'm sorry, my son is just here and he's pausing. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Anybody who would like to add on to Eugene's?
I think just very briefly, obviously there's a lot of good things with AI, but there's also it can also be used quite irresponsibly, right? So
Yes.
one of my colleagues recently, a client called up and said, "Hey, Seth, what's the construction cost per square meter for a hotel in Bangkok now? Grade A, 5-star." And of course, based on our benchmark data, we give an indication. And then a few minutes later, I get the reply back saying, "Yeah, you say that, but when I asked ChatGPT what the construction cost would be, ChatGPT tells me it's a lot lower than what you've just quoted me. Why are you guys always, over allowing inside the rates? That's why you guys always mess up the development costs." To which my response is, ChatGPT doesn't know every single thing. It's trying to get data from all sorts of places. The timing of the construction, the inflationary rate maybe is not considered, the location is not considered, and of course the advice as professional and competent quantity surveyors are, our benchmarks are based on live projects that have actually been completed, right? So I think it's also important to educate clients as such, who may be over dependent on using ChatGPT as a check and balance to the QS expert advice.
Yes, agree with you on that, Seth. Now we have like a number of questions here on the in the chat box, but I would only take like a few so that in the essence of time. But what we will do is we will distribute this in our platform and then have the take of our panelists here or their views on it. Now the question that has I think question number 4, where the tariffs has been asked, is tackled during our discussion. Maybe we can skip that for now. But there's this question on as a quantity surveyor, it is inevitable that we will have the tendency to wear many hats. Well, especially with regarding to risk management, where's the fine line or limit that we're going beyond our competency as a professional quantity surveyor? Do we really have to limit it? Or or is it limitless?
If I can respond,
Yes, go
this
ahead.
is my pure opinion, personal opinion. I think there is no limit, but it's just a matter of how you convey your opinion to the client and to the other stakeholders. We don't really have to, convey the message as if like we know everything. We give our opinion, our professional opinion based on our knowledge and experience, and let the meeting or let the team decide. So we are not deciding on behalf of the project. So we are actually sharing our concern, and let everyone think about it, evaluate, and make a decision for the project, for the betterment of the project.
Thank you for that, Zuhaili. I think Eugene would like to add, or anybody?
No, I think so. Dr. Zohaili is correct. So even for myself, I do have a background in IT, law, and sustainability, But I will, when I give my advice, it's holistically, always going back to the foundations of QS practice and procedures and understanding. And I stop short on voluntary assumption of responsibilities. Means that, for example, let's say insurance. We have to talk about insurance, right? Doctor Umbra Fide and insurable interest and all that. But we stop giving advice on insurance advice, like, this one should be what is going to be the rate of for insurance, and what should the client should take up, and so on and so forth, right? Then we just say, please seek necessary advice from your insurance consultants, right? So it gives enough, like what Dr. Zohairi mentioned, that we give comfort in what we have in our advice, but point them the right directions, that we are not lawyers, we're not insurance advisors, we are not designs, but from our data, it looks as though the structure is a bit heavy. Could the engineer relook into that based on our ratios that we have, for example? So we draw that line there. Yeah. So it's the legal term is voluntary assumption of responsibilities.
Voluntary assumption of responsibilities. Yes. Would you like to add on, Reiner?
Yeah, I'll actually touch on what Eugene mentioned about experience versus data, right? Because as a QS, you always go back to the historical data, and you might have AI giving you some when you go to AI is very structured, and if you can actually use, I spoke with the CEO of Microsoft, and here's what he told me, that 72% of the CEOs in the world actually use AI to help them structure their frame of mind, which is actually very useful for all of us. But related to this next question is this: do you actually limit ourselves? And I agree with Dr. Zahaili. No, because as I've said a while ago, you learn as you go. You learn as you go, and the more you do it, the better you actually do. So the more projects that you complete, the better that you get. As what Eugene said, experience is the key. So if you actually have a very experienced QS, that person can actually give you a lot of insights. Now, he doesn't have to be the expert on that, but he can give you an insight. In my previous project, these are the learnings that we had there. So I'm not the expert here, but I'm sharing with you an insight based on my experience, without assuming the responsibility of being the expert. But it's on a personal level, it's really challenging the envelope of learning, that while you're doing your project, the biggest advantage of Filipino QS is that we're also engineers. I'm a civil engineer by profession, and that allows us actually to break barriers of contracts, financials, economics, and everything. But you challenge the envelope of learning every single day. And when you are a civil engineer, and if you just limit yourself to understanding civil works or architectural works, then that's not going to work for you as a QS. You have to understand electrical, mechanical, plumbing, fire protection, and every other stuff. You don't have to be an expert there, but just understand how others actually work and understand the insight that they can provide, and you can carry on and carry that insight to your next project.
Definitely agree with all of you there. And the most important key there is to collaborate. I mean, acquired learning is also, or acquired knowledge comes from your communication with other fields within or let's talk about, like, just in a project, communicate with the other departments. Every department that you have in your projects is essential for going towards the completion of the project. Talk to them, get the insights. I mean, you're a QS, you're an engineer, yes, but the construction team the insights of the construction team would be very valuable as to how they're going to carry out the works, and that would drive the cost, that would drive the time. So in essence, I think the communication plays a vital role in for us to continue learning, and also to go and then expound on these avenues that all our panelists talked about. Okay. capture some knowledge on construction technology, on sustainability, have it all together, and then direct them towards the direction of the expert or the key people, if in case related to what they are asking or what the client really wants to know or the output that we really need to have. Okay, so in the essence of time, I think let's take on just one last question over here. Which I saw. Okay, it is linked to the safety. So in the iron triangle of construction project management, safety is not part of it, but rather the three of those. You have time, cost, and quality. Now, it's good that safety is now considered as a vital thing for the project, especially mega projects. Now, the question is directed to Engineer Reiner here. Could you please explain more on where safety plays the major role, especially for mega infrastructure projects?
And good thing I actually prepared the slides for this ahead of time, right? So I was like, okay, I have the slides for that. So yeah. So in public infrastructure, safety is paramount because public safety, right? That's always the case with infrastructure that, can you imagine if your skyways or your trains are actually failing, and that can cause mass casualties. So that's why safety is actually critical. Now, I understand that most of the engineers or the QS are actually doing real estate works like condos, hotels, and malls, and wherein sometimes safety is just like another portion of the report, just another pillar. But for public infrastructure, it's totally different. Public safety becomes paramount. That's why you got tens of millions of man hours in terms of safety in the job site. But more than that is the safety of the performance of that structure, of that infrastructure. And the second point is the long project usefulness. So if you're investing in multi-billion dollars of infrastructure, you want that infrastructure to be there for a very long time. The lifespan of that project should be longer than most projects. So safety, and of course, again, quality would always outweigh speed. That's why if you notice, if you have the railways or the subways or the skyways or the airports, these projects are actually long gestation projects. And there's so much cost to it because cost is actually at the last, the last priority for the planners, because public safety will always be paramount. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Yes, indeed. Engineer Reiner, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. In the essence of time, we have to cut short our question and answer portion. Actually, we have already extended the whole session to an hour, more than an hour, and we're really grateful for our panelists for staying with us, and of course, our attendees for still being there. And then I believe that everybody here has appreciated the insights coming from all our panelists. And thank you very much for your participation as well. The attendance link has been sent to the chat box. Please don't forget to key in or filling up the attendance form. I'm now giving back the floor to Jarrell. Over to you. And thank you very much to all our panelists and attendees.
Okay, so since we don't have enough time, I'll just scan through the awarding of certificates for each panel speakers and the facilitator. So I'd like to give this certificate of appreciation to our facilitator, Engineer Arlene Joy Paredes, and the certificate of appreciation as a panel speaker for Engineer Raynor G. Amandre. Also for Dr. Zoaili bin Mohammad Rami, and to Dr. Eugene Sea, and to Mr. Seth Leong. So thank you so much on behalf of RICS and PICQS. Before we officially close, I think we need to do a photo op. Can everyone turn on their camera, please, to have a virtual group photo? I think Sir Angelo can assist us on with the screenshot.
Okay.
I think you
Is
have to unshare the Jarrell.
I'll take
yes.
out the pin.
Thank you. You have to unshare the screen. Yeah.
Okay.
You
Wait, just a minute.
Okay.